Hello, welcome to Fibro Warrior, my new normal. I'm MJ Aragon, and I'm here with my producers, JoJo Merricks.
Yep.
And Tony Jeffries.
Hi.
You're always late. Today, I'll be sharing Tricia Wells' journey. I also want to mention an amazing little boy named Aydain. It's this little. I'll get into that more. It's a little sad. And then finally, I want to touch on allergies, food allergies to be specific. So, I made a post in Dear Fibromyalgia. It's a wonderful group. I've mentioned it several times that I really like going into, and we can all talk about the things that we can't talk to everyone else about, and say what we feel freely without worrying about judgment. And I wrote a post on there asking if anybody wanted to share their journey. So I got a few people. I read one last week, and I have one this week. So here it goes. I suppose my story starts in 1993 after my hysterectomy. I started to feel quite lethargic. I kept going back to my doctor and eventually was told to pull myself together. Anyway, moving forward 2 years, after a long battle with doctors, I had pains in my elbow, and within 10 months, it had moved throughout my whole body. I was sent for tests to find out if I had arthritis. I was then diagnosed at the hospital with FMS. I had been fighting with this for 24 years, and until recently, about 3 years, I had been winning. I exercise every day, a thing I can no longer do. I have been diagnosed with several other illnesses, which I think come under the FMS umbrella. But here in Scotland, they won't they won't group them together. I have to say though, as we get free healthcare here, I'm luckier than most in this forum. Excuse me a second, my mouth is really dry. I had fought hard for around 20 years and exercised daily. I mean, really exercise. RPM classes, weightlifting, high impact aerobics. Now, I'm not saying it was easy. It wasn't. Most days I had to come home and just sleep, but I was proud of the fact that I did it. And then around 3 years ago, everything changed. My fatigue was really bad. I started having problems with my stomach, which meant I was having toilet accidents in the street. Really humiliating. There are days I cannot leave the house just in case. There is never any warning, which makes it difficult to gauge. I was diagnosed with several new illnesses, including migraines and pain-free migraines, which means I completely lose my vision for a while. And I can't tell you how scary that is. I get steroid injections in my feet for Morton's neuroma, which is accompanied by plantar fasciitis, which means both my toes and heels are painful. The gastric acid I have daily is also very painful, and I take a lot of antacids. I have occasions where I get itchy all over, and I have ended up at the hospital with pain so bad down my leg I couldn't put my feet on the floor. I sat for over 5 hours, only to be told it could be deep tissue damage, or it might be FMS. Like all FMS sufferers, my biggest fight is prejudice. I don't look ill. In fact, I'm probably healthier than most of my friends because I still try to exercise, although nowhere near as hardcore as before. Excuse me. But I need to move my body. I have friends. In fact, my best friend questioned me over it, saying things like, "Everybody else I know are people who can't get out of bed." I say, I have fought this for years, and I will continue to fight it. In fact, my mantra is, it lives with me. I don't live with it. I do struggle nowadays, knowing it's winning, but I'm not finished fighting. You know that saying, you are what you eat? Well, I am what I do. I just need to find a new way of moving. And I refuse to let doctors who won't admit it's one illness that speak me. Fellow sufferers know what we go through, and only fellow sufferers can help. Tricia Wells. Thank you, Tricia. I want to thank you so much for sending me your journey. I know that it's important to share many people's journey, especially a person like yourself. You're in a different area. You're in Scotland, and the healthcare system is different there than it is here. So it's nice to know, what, not nice, but it's good to know what issues you have to deal with, unlike what we deal with here in the U.S., open up everyone's eyes a little bit. our healthcare system, unfortunately, isn't free for everybody. And those who do have to pay for it pay a huge price. But it's important that we get these journeys in, because I've mentioned before, the more journeys we get in, the more people we can connect with, because all of our journeys are quite different. So thank you once again, Tricia. I really appreciate you sending that in for me. I hadn't planned on this, but I came across this post. This little boy, his name's Aydain, and I'm just going to read a couple of things that were posted recently. He's dealing with a lot, and so I'm basically just reading things that are written on the Team Aydain post. Our little warrior Aydain just turned 6 on October 5th, 2016, after 22 months of being cancer-free. Aydain has relapsed with stage 4 recurrent CNS neuroblastoma. So that is the description at the top of the page. And every so often I scroll through my Facebook page and I'll see updates. And this is what I read yesterday. Today has seemed never-ending. One of these moments in time you pray would somehow disappear, and yet wish you could freeze forever. We continue to hold on to optimism through faith, however. In medical terms, we are out of options, even with the trial chemo. To slow the disease down, the cancer is just too strong. We will be giving Aydain his very last dose of chemotherapy this evening. His doctors had requested that he be admitted for a hospital stay this evening. However, we promised Aydain this morning that no matter what happened, he would be coming home tonight. A promise is a promise. Therefore, we will be back here bright and early tomorrow morning, ready to scan and view just how far the cancer has spread. Hashtag bravest boy in the world. Hashtag can't stop, won't stop. Hashtag Aydain's Army. And then today, today I read, our results have finally arrived. While we try to gather all of our courage and words to update, please stop and flood heaven with all of the extra prayers you might find in our mighty little warrior. For our mighty little warrior, I apologize. For our mighty little warrior boy, please pray for peace and comfort. Pray for strength for our family and strong hearts to endure. So it's devastating and it's heartbreaking that this little boy who's 6 years old is going through all this, and just watching how the family, this is an amazing family. They're wonderful people. Bill had did a fundraiser for them a couple years ago now, and it was our pleasure, of course, to try to help someone in need, and things were looking good. He was cancer-free for a short time, for 22 months, and of course everybody was hoping for the best. So now it's come to that point where there's nothing left to do. So I can't begin to imagine how this family's feeling right now, knowing that they're going to lose their beautiful little boy, and how his siblings must be affected by this. So my heart goes out to you. I love you guys, and I will tag the page when we post this podcast, so that you can go to the page if you want, and just read or just say a few words, or if you pray. If you don't pray, just tell them that they're in there, and that they're in your heart, and just give them a little comfort and support. So we love you, Aydain. And all right. I know this isn't fibromyalgia related. I just once in a while, cancer is something that people are fighting, and brain tumors, and there's so many things out there. I'm not going to refrain from speaking about them just because it has nothing to do with fibromyalgia. It's something that needs to be addressed and needs to be known, and needs awareness as well. Excuse me. Okay, so last week my podcast was a bit of a wreck. I was extremely stressed. I had really bad anxiety. So when you listen to that podcast, you're gonna really hear it. I was not able to hide it very well at all. You could tell a lot of it I had written down previously because I'm forgetful, that fibro fog. So you can tell the things that I've written down and the things that I was just saying because my voice would change, and I was trying to stay focused. And even when they were speaking to me, telling me their stuff, it was really difficult for me to keep up and pay attention. I was really struggling to pay attention. So if you notice, my response seemed kind of vague and not really a lot of thought put into it. That's why I was really having a difficult time connecting and listening to everything they were saying. Of course, I listened to it later and I gathered it all at that point. But during the podcast, I was really having a difficult time staying focused. I was extremely stressed. My mouth was dry. The stupid cough, I was trying so hard to keep it under control. And so all of these factors were coming in, and it really comes across. So, I apologize for that. But once again, as you know, I want to keep it real. I want you guys to see that I struggle with those things as well. So even though the MJ, the Miss Perfection in me, wished that it came out better and it was smoother, it's not always going to be that way. So that's the point of this. So you can see that, hey, I'm struggling with it just as much, even though most times it's not apparent and I'm able to hide it. I really couldn't. And I'm sad a little bit that it happened to be that podcast, because that was an important one about, this wonderful film that's coming up. So I was a little disappointed in myself, but we can't plan ahead. We can't know how we're going to feel from day to day. And so I did the best I could. So I hope that you still enjoyed it and are thrilled about the news as much as we are. And I still need to get on the page. This week has been tough. I've really been a little bit in and out. And I need to get on their page and try to host a viewing out here, because that's important that we do that. Anyway, so I just wanted to address that in case you're all wondering, like, wow, she didn't sound together. I really was not together. Anyway, so I also, today I want to talk about food allergies and intolerances. I think that it's a huge factor for us having fibro. Excuse me. It affects us in a lot of ways, and you wouldn't realize unless you really did the research how much our intestines, our guts affect how we feel. It has a lot to do with the lethargy that we feel and our tiredness and feeling nauseous, or, of course, nausea we expect to be part of the stomach, but when you're getting migraines and, your mouth is dry and you're tired, you're not really connecting those things with the fact that it could be something something internal to do with your intestines, and having allergies of any sort, which I'm sure most of us do without even realizing it. That's a big factor. And for some reason, my phone does not want to load. Let's try this again.
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But you look like you had a second.
Yes, go ahead.
The migraines and things can come from things happening in the intestines. Mm-hmm. A lot of what percentage of things are caused by? I'm
not certain of the percentage.
I mean, just off of not medically, but just a guess of.
Well, if you're eating something that you have an allergic reaction to, there's different ways that it affects your body. It could cause you to have a headache. It could cause you to break out and have hives. It could cause you to feel overheated, itchy. Your tongue swells. Of course, that's the worst one. When everything swells. Anaphylaxis is where you could stop breathing and you could die. So right. I for one have to carry EpiPen for my peanut allergy for that exact reason. Right. But so it has a lot of effects. So it depends on the particular type of food that you're allergic to, but it can cause headaches or migraines. And I'm not sure exactly how that connection works, and why does this not want to load? There we go. But it is definitely a factor. You would be surprised at how much all the inner workings of our body, mm-hmm. all the processes that everything goes through, what parts of our body make sure that we get the proteins and they're not kicked away because it's not functioning properly, and that everything's being filtered out the way it should be, that our kidney and livers are working properly. Those things are important, and if you're not aware and keeping track of how you're feeling and what's going on with your body, it can affect you in a major way.
Right.
And especially for us having fibro, it is a big factor, because I think a lot of us have it, and there's probably many who don't realize they have it. And the reason I found out is because, the reason I found out is because I was just, I've always eaten fairly healthy. And we would go out to sushi and go out to dinner and plan a night, go to the movies, whatever. And every time we go out to dinner, I wouldn't make it past dinner. I would get so tired, and I was gaining weight. And I'm like, why am I gaining weight? I eat healthy. I'm not eating junk, I haven't changed the way I eat, like nothing, I haven't done anything, everything's status quo. And I couldn't understand what's going on with me. And so I went to the doctor.
Allergies.
Yeah, so I went to the doctor and I said, I told him what was going on. He goes, could be that. He goes, but I'll tell you right now, the allergy testing, it's kind of a pain. I don't know if I'm like, feeling like this, I don't care how much of a pain it is. I want to know. And so he sent me to get the allergy testing done. Now I'm allergic to many environmental things as well. And some of the environmental things are connected to some of the food things. I don't remember if this particular article explains that, but if you're allergic to grass, then certain fruits like apples, I'm just saying this off the hand because I can't remember exactly, but they're connected to certain foods. So if you're allergic to this kind of environmental substance, and you're probably allergic to X amount of things that are also food allergies. So it's pretty interesting how it's all connected. So anyway, I go to see the lady, and she gave me my she gave me my testing, and I had already had some blood tests. That's how I found out about the peanuts. And there it is. And so she tested me for 75 foods, 75 different things, I think, for that one. And out of the 75 that she tested me for, I think I was allergic to 25.
Is it one thing?
It's a prick test that they do in your back for different things. So they tested me for certain kind of foods that are known to be allergies, like melons and strawberries and different nuts, tree nuts. Peanut. They didn't do peanut because I already know it has that. But seafood, like shellfish and things like that. So she tested me for a multitude of things, and I could feel my back getting itchy.
Is it one? So is it like 3 of those tests for 75? So like 25. This one test for 75. This one test for this one test for 25. Or is it just one?
No, it's a bunch. She does 75 pricks on my back.
Oh,
of all the different foods.
Okay. I
Yeah.
didn't know if it was categorized.
Yeah,
Like, okay,
you can
one.
do up to 100. It just depends on the doctor. But she did 75, and she did all the pricks on my back, and then she did them in an order that were on a paper, and then she would go back and look and see how they reacted and mark from 1 to 4 how bad the reaction was.
So what she was pricking you with was the actual whatever
Was
it was
actual,
she was testing
yes,
you
the
for.
actual apple,
So what
the enzymes, I guess, or something
it had to
along
be
those
a
lines.
very small percentage of whatever she was testing for, because that's got to be. I mean, they have to regulate that.
Well, yeah, because I imagine if it was a
if
lot,
it's something, then
I
you
would
could
be
have a bad reaction.
absolutely. So they and it was crazy because once again I didn't know I was allergic. I had no idea. I knew I had some outside stuff, but I
Right.
didn't know I was allergic to all these foods. So I could feel my face swelling, my nose, and everything. I could feel it swelling, and I was like, "What's happening?" So she gives me the Benadryl or something.
Would they give you time in between each prick? Like prick
No,
5
they
minutes?
did them all, and then they leave.
How can they tell?
Because they have to give you some time for it to go into effect. I can't remember how much time passed. It was 4 or 5 years ago now, probably 5 years ago.
Do they do a
but some
blood
time
test
passed.
afterwards?
Well, I had a blood test with my regular doctor,
Right.
but the allergist, she just did the prick test. And so as soon as she came back in, she goes, "Oh my gosh, you're allergic to my stuff." So she gave me allergy medication. Thankfully, she gave it to me when she did, because as I was driving home, which I shouldn't have been doing, but I drove myself. So I was driving home, and I could feel my face swelling, but then it went back down right away. So the allergy medication kicked in just in time, because I was like, "Oh my God, what's happening to me?" While I'm driving, I could feel everything reacting.
So it must be that each little prick, they can see it reacting. When she comes in, she can look at your back and be like, "Okay, that's something, that's something."
And
See, I have no idea
and there's a
how-
score 1 to 4 on the severity of it.
Based on the color or whatever?
I guess how much
big it
the
is?
bump raises, possibly. I couldn't see it because it's on my
Right.
back, so I'm not really 100% certain of how it looks. But I just know that she could tell by the severity of the reaction,
Right.
but whether it was 1 through 4. 1, of course, being the least, and 4 being the most.
And that's an allergist?
Allergist.
Allergist? That's her title?
I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
But yeah, she. So she told me, okay, you're allergic to these things. You have to cut out this, and that's. She's the one that turned me on to that syrup I had you use in your coffee. The agave,
made from tequila.
the agave
made from
syrup.
some-
She's
yeah.
the one. She goes, "Why'd you do that? You know, that's better for you than sugar and this and that." Because I'm allergic to corn. Okay, I don't know if everyone
So
is
no
aware.
corn syrup.
I don't know if everyone's aware of how much corn is in, how many things corn is in, how prevalent corn is. Pretty much anything that's been processed.
It's almost like water.
Basically anything that's been processed has corn in it, in some variation or form, because it doesn't say corn always. Sometimes, so I was looking it up. There's like 30 different words for corn.
Right.
So if you're looking at the ingredients, you don't know, like, is this corn? I don't know what this is. Yeah, there's all these different.
And you're like, corn.
So I got home that day and I told Bill, I said, I'm allergic to like 25 things. It's 32 or so now to date that I've found that I'm allergic to, like kiwis, for example. If I eat kiwi, it feels like something pricking my tongue and get this metallic taste in my mouth. The same for a watermelon, not as strong, but same. So pretty much any melons I can't have. Because, I mean, you can have them, but I won't enjoy it, and
Right.
I'll have a small reaction. Those aren't the worst.
What if you have some Benadryl or something like before you?
That's something I do because when we go out to the restaurant, you're not always 100% certain of if they're going to give you something that you shouldn't have in there.
Right.
And so even though, like I said, the reactions aren't terrible, but the histamines cause us to retain water, which is why I was gaining weight.
Right.
And and makes you tired and all that. So I noticed that I went home and I said, I have all these allergies. I'm gonna stop eating all the things I'm allergic to. I literally stopped eating anything processed. Everything that was on there that I was allergic to, I cut it all out. Now, you don't have to do that. You can cut up, because it really limited the things that I was allowed to eat.
Right.
It really, really did. And so, but I was like, you know what? I'm tired of feeling this terrible.
Right,
I cut it
whatever
all
makes you-
out.
right,
I
yeah.
stopped eating. I'm allergic to ridiculous things. I think I mentioned before, celery and watermelon and cucumbers, which are mostly water, So it's like, why am I allergic to these things? I want to say, and this is, of course, a theory. I don't remember if I read that this is true or not, but because they use corn and pesticides, that's being sprayed on our vegetables, and I think that might have also something to do with
corn and pesticides.
So I think that might also be a reason why some of the things I'm allergic to that seem odd. That's just my theory, of course. But like I said before, some of the outside certain trees or whatever have a relation to certain fruits and vegetables. So that might be why you're also allergic to them. So there's a lot of interesting connections. But I basically wanted to talk about this because, one, it's important to go get your allergy testing because it can really help you feel better. Like when Bill and I weren't doing all that well financially, I was eating things that were, not great for me. I really shouldn't be eating, but we were so broke we couldn't afford the healthy stuff, And I felt literally terrible. I felt just the worst. And as soon as we got back on our feet and I was able to eat healthy again, I felt so much better. It was night and day how much better I felt. So that's why it's important that I bring this up and I talk to you guys about this, because I want you to go get checked to find out, because it will make you feel better if you're eating the right foods and avoiding the stuff that's obviously making you feel terrible. And there's a difference between food allergies and intolerances. So this article seemed to have a good example or explanation. So that's why I picked this one. I looked through several. So anyway, excuse me.
One of my friends growing up, one of my good friends, he was allergic to grass, and I'm like, how are you allergic to grass, dude? Like, wow, like, is that? And that's the only time I've heard an extreme allergy. I mean, I'm sure I've heard others in life, but I'd never forget that, because I mean, your kids play in the grass.
Yep.
And we used to get itchy and everything, but if he did, he'd have a problem,
Yep. Yeah, I used to get a little itchy too, but it was nothing any drastic. I started noticing the environmental allergies when I was in my late 20s, because it rained a great deal, kind of like how it did this past few months. It rained a lot in the desert and everything bloomed, and things that didn't normally bloom because it's so dry and everything's so dead, so all these wonderful things bloom, and all of a sudden I'm like I'm having allergies and sneezing. I'm like, oh man.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure that's around the time it began. I may have had some prior to that, but they weren't anything that was noticeable. And once again, I didn't know I had all these food allergies until I was gaining weight for some weird reason, and I felt tired all the time. We go out to dinner and plan a night out, go out to dinner, I'm like, oh, I'm too tired, I just would go home. And so it can really affect you in such a huge way. So this is the article. It It's a food allergy or something else it's called. And I found it on WebMD. It's pretty common to have a reaction to a certain food, but in most cases, it's an intolerance rather than a true allergy. Why does it matter? Although they may have similar symptoms, a food allergy can be more serious. These clues can help you figure out if it's an allergy or intolerance. A doctor can help you know for sure. A food allergy usually comes on suddenly. A small amount of food can trigger it, happens every time you eat the food, and can be life-threatening. A food intolerance usually comes on gradually, may only happen when you eat a lot of the food, and may only happen if you eat the food often. It is not life-threatening. The shared symptoms. A food allergy and intolerance both can cause nausea, stomach pain, diarrhea, and vomiting. Different symptoms. When food irritates your stomach or your body can't properly digest it, it's an intolerance. You may have these symptoms: gas, cramps, bloating, heartburn, headaches, irritability, or nervousness. A food allergy happens when your immune system mistakes something in food as harmful and it attacks it, much like our autoimmune diseases do to us. It can affect your whole body, not just your stomach, and symptoms may include a rash, hives, or itchy skin, shortness of breath, chest pain, sudden drop in blood pressure, trouble swallowing or breathing, and this is life-threatening. Call 911 immediately. Common food allergies and intolerances. These triggers can cause about 90% of food allergies. Peanuts, which is a big one for me. Tree nuts, such as walnuts, pecans, almonds, fish, shellfish, milk, eggs, soy, and wheat. Eggs is another one that I have to mention when I go to doctors, especially if I'm getting any kind of injection or shot for anything, because eggs is something I'm allergic to, and they actually have egg in some things that they use, so that's something I have to bring up. So peanuts, eggs, I bring up often. The most common food intolerance is lactose intolerance. It happens when people can't digest lactose, a sugar found in milk and dairy. Another kind of intolerance is being sensitive to sulfites or other food additives. Sulfites can trigger asthma attacks in some people. Remember we were talking about that in wine? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about gluten allergy? While celiac disease, a long-lasting digestive condition that's triggered by eating gluten, does not involve the immune system, it does cause life-threatening symptoms. Treatment for food allergy. Your doctor can find out if you have an allergy or intolerance. These things may help. Keep a diary of the foods you eat and the symptoms you have. Stop eating some foods to help figure out which one is causing symptoms, and have allergy tests done. If you have a food allergy, you need to stop eating the food altogether. If you have a food intolerance, you'll need to avoid or cut back that food in your diet. For lactose intolerance, you can look for lactose-free milk or take a lactase enzyme supplement. With a food allergy, you could be at risk for anaphylaxis, a life-threatening reaction. Ask your doctor if you need to carry an AVQ or an EpiPen. Ephedrine shots is what they are. That you could give yourself in emergency, and if so, always carry 2 injections with you. How to prevent symptoms. Learn which foods and how much cause you to have symptoms. Either avoid the food or only have as much as you can without triggering symptoms. When you eat out, ask your server about how your meal will be prepared. It may not always be clear from the menu whether some dishes contain problem foods. Learn to read food labels and check the ingredients for trigger foods. Don't forget, check condiments and seasonings. They may have MSG or other additives that can cause symptoms. So, was that everything? Yeah. So, those are the differences. And what we were just touching on a minute ago is I would take a Benadryl before we went out to eat, just in case there was something that was missed, so I wouldn't feel terrible. Right. But it turns out, so as I was mentioning before, it turns out that, so I went home and I said, that's it. I'm cutting out all the things I'm allergic to, right? Mm-hmm. So I stopped eating anything processed. I made everything myself. Everything was fresh. Everything was washed really well and made sure that there's none of the pesticides or anything left over. And I suddenly lost 22 pounds in less than 2 weeks. It just disappeared. And I was like, what the hell just happened? So I called the doctor because I was like, that's a lot of weight to lose that fast. And I called the doctor. I was like, what just happened? Like, oh, you were retaining water.
Right.
You were retaining water from all the stuff that you were eating, because I was eating so many things daily that I was allergic to, because a lot of the things I was allergic to are things I ate all the time.
Right.
So I had to stop eating so many things I love. It sucks. There's still a few things I'll do once in a while, like I use lemon, which is something I'm allergic to, but it's more the rind, probably more so than the pulp itself.
Right.
But yeah, just little things like that I still introduced to because I'm not eating all of those things that I'm allergic to anymore. So having something a little bit here and there is not the worst thing. But yeah, so I had to learn to eat in a different fashion and really cut my choices down a great deal, because there's only certain things I like, and a lot of the things that I loved eating happen to be things I was allergic to. And I think they mentioned this may not cover all foods, but certain foods, if you eat them constantly, you can become allergic to them. So things like raspberries, for example, that was something I ate all the time every morning.
You can develop an allergy.
Yeah. So yeah, I had to cut those things out, which is sad because I love that stuff. But anyway, I just wanted to bring this up because I think that it's really, really important that, our guts are telling us something, and we may not get it. We may not realize what's going on, and that it's causing all the things that it could be causing. So go get a food allergy testing. Go get it tested and try to cut out all of it, or as much as you can, and because I promise you, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel a whole lot better. So anyway, I want to say thank you once again to Tricia Wells for sending in her journey, and we're sending our love, hugs, and positive thoughts to Aydain and his family and friends. And remember, go check out those food allergies. Very important. All right, guys, as always, you're not alone. I love y'all, love y'all, love y'all. About was that the people who weren't too thrilled about it is because it took them months. It wasn't healing over months. And so, of course, that's not fun. You don't have to worry about that for that length of time. So I can understand if you were having that problem with it, you would probably end up taking it out. But like I said, even if it doesn't work, I may keep it because it's cute. It's a little tiny little curved thing in my ear that you really barely see anyway.